Most of us aren't living in a crisis. We aren't standing on the edge of a cliff watching the rocks crumble beneath our feet. There are no debt collectors banging on the door at 3 a.m. The car hasn't been repossessed. The lights are still on. For Joshua, life was fine. That's the word he used when people asked. When a friend would ask over coffee, "How are you holding up?" Joshua would smile, that practiced reflexive smile we all have, and say, "I'm fine, busy but fine." And on paper, he was right. He had a job. He paid his rent on the first of the month. He had a routine that moved him from Monday to Friday without much friction. He was a functioning adult in a functioning world. But fine is a dangerous word. It is perhaps the most deceptive word in our vocabulary. It's a mask we wear when we don't have the language for the heaviness in our chest. It is the beige paint we cover our walls with so no one sees the cracks. Every night as the city noise died down and the distraction of the workday faded, a quiet tension would move into Joshua's apartment. It wasn't the panic of losing everything. It wasn't a scream. It was a hum, a low-frequency vibration of worry that lived in the back of his neck. It was the exhaustion of managing it. He felt like he was treading water in the middle of a vast ocean. He wasn't drowning. His head was above water, but he was kicking, constantly kicking, just to stay in the same place, and he was getting very, very tired. You see, the problem wasn't his bank balance. He actually made enough money to live. The problem was the fog. He lived in a world where every decision, even a simple cup of coffee with a friend, felt like a math problem he couldn't quite solve. He would stand at the counter, looking at the menu, and a rapid-fire calculation would start in his brain. If I spend these $5 now, what does that do to next week? Do I have this? I think I have this. But what about the phone bill? He didn't know the answer, and because he didn't know, every choice felt like a threat. Joshua was a ghost in his own finances. He checked his accounts constantly, sometimes 3 or 4 times a day. He would pull out his phone in the elevator, refresh the banking app, stare at the number, and then put it away. 10 minutes later, he would do it again. But checking isn't the same as knowing, and staring isn't the same as seeing. He knew the numbers, but he didn't trust them. He lived in the calculating phase of life. He would say to himself, "If I buy this today, can I pay that on Tuesday?" It was a mental gymnastics routine he performed every single day. It was a low-grade fever of anxiety that never broke. Because he lacked clarity, every choice felt like a risk. This is the weight no one sees. The mental energy spent wondering where you stand. It follows you into your sleep. It sits at the dinner table with you, silencing your laughter. It turns abundance into a myth that only belongs to other people. For a long time, Joshua avoided plans. He thought discipline was a cage. He'd see people with their budgets and their systems and their spreadsheets, and he would think, "That's too rigid. That's boring. I want to be free. I want to be flexible. I want to live in the moment." But he was learning a hard truth, one slow, exhausting day at a time. Flexibility without a foundation isn't freedom. It's just drifting, and drifting always leads to currents you didn't choose. He stayed in the dark because he was afraid that if he turned on the light, he wouldn't like what he saw. He preferred the monster in the closet to the reality of opening the door. He mistook his chaos for living in the moment, but you can't enjoy the moment when you're secretly terrified of the next one. The turning point wasn't a raise. It wasn't a lottery win. It wasn't a financial guru saving him. It was a Tuesday night, just a regular rainy Tuesday. Joshua sat down at his kitchen table. The apartment was silent. He reached into a junk drawer and pulled out a notebook he'd bought months ago. It was dusty. The corners were bent. He didn't open it to fix his life. That felt too big, too impossible. He opened it because he was simply tired of the noise in his head. He began to write. He didn't make a complicated chart. He just wrote the facts. This is what I earn. This is what I owe. This is the bill I've been avoiding. This is what I actually spent on food last week. There was no judgment on the page. Paper cannot judge you. Ink cannot condemn you. It was just truth, stark black and white truth. And in that moment, something miraculous happened. His heart rate slowed. The ceiling didn't fall in. The floor didn't open up to swallow him. The numbers didn't attack him. For the first time in years, he could breathe, really breathe. Nothing had changed in his bank account. He didn't have $1 more than he had 10 minutes ago, but everything had changed in his spirit. He had replaced imagination, which is where fear lives, with reality. You can fight a real enemy. You cannot fight a ghost. A few days later, while searching for answers, he found a verse that gave a name to what he had just experienced, Proverbs 21:5. The plans of the diligent lead to profit as surely as haste leads to poverty. He had read it before. Growing up, he'd always heard it as a command to grind, to work harder, to run faster, be diligent, be productive. But now, in the quiet of his new reality, he heard it differently. He heard it as a promise of peace. Diligence isn't about being a machine. It isn't about being perfect. In the original wisdom, diligence implies care. It implies steady attention. It is the act of looking after what you've been given, like a gardener looks after a vine. The verse wasn't telling him to be a millionaire. It was telling him that the path to a full life, to abundance, is paved with the quiet, steady act of paying attention. Haste, that constant running, that frantic calculating, that desire to get there now, leads to poverty. Not just poverty of the wallet, but poverty of the soul. Joshua realized he didn't need to be faster, he needed to be steadier. Joshua didn't become a financial guru overnight. He didn't start trading stocks or flipping real estate. He just committed to one small weekly rhythm. Every Sunday before the week began, he spent 15 minutes with his notebook. Just 15 minutes. He looked at the truth. He thanked God for what was there, naming his provision, and he made a simple plan for the week ahead. This is what I have. This is where it will go. That was it. Slowly, the fog evaporated. Because he knew where he stood, he could finally be generous. He could finally say yes to a meal with a friend without that cold calculation in his gut. He could look at the menu and order the coffee because his plan said he could. Confidence didn't come from having more money, it came from having clarity. He had stopped running from the truth and started walking with it. If you saw Joshua today, his life might look the same as it did a year ago. He still has the same job. He still lives in the same apartment. He drives the same car. But the heaviness is gone. The mask is off. He found that abundance isn't a number in a bank account. Abundance is the ability to sleep through the night because you aren't afraid of Monday morning. It's the peace of mind that comes from being a good steward of your life. The plans of the diligent lead to abundance. Surely, slowly, quietly. If your life feels fine, but your heart feels heavy, perhaps it's time to stop drifting. We often think we need a miracle to fix our finances. We think we need a windfall or a massive raise or a lucky break. But usually we just need to turn on the light. You don't need a miracle. You might just need a notebook and 15 minutes of honesty. God's wisdom isn't a shortcut to wealth. It's a map to peace. It is an invitation to stop calculating and start living. May you find the courage to look at your path this week. May you blow the dust off the notebook. And may you find that abundance is much closer than you think. If you want to start the same habit Joshua did, I have created a 15-minute clarity check guide. It's a simple one-page framework to help you name your truth and find your footing, just like he did. You can download it for free at the link in the description. Thank you for joining the Quiet Wisdom Journal. If this reflection helped you, consider sharing it with someone who might be carrying a hidden weight today. We'll see you next week.